how we implement culture and rituals, in my opinion, there are three things that have worked. And I've seen this in a family-led organization. I've seen it in a corporate organization. The first thing, you have to have a culture custodian. Who is owning this culture change? Now, in a practical example, for example, Avenue, when there was a new management that came on board 5 years ago, it meant that there is going to be change. And the way things were done was very different from what the new management was going to do. For example, a surgeon who is coming from university or from training or from fellowship is now a minimal invasive surgeon. He does not believe in cutting, right? Because his training and the technology has moved. Another surgeon would not do that. They're used to open cut, open heart surgeries. So these two needed to be fused. So somebody needed to announce that there is a change that is going to happen, and we've discussed that already. And that custodian needs to be the CEO or the leader who will drive this change. The second, which is the question that has been asked, is what are the rituals? So for example, in Avenue, because there were two factions, a 45-year-old organization obviously had, and I retired about people who have done 25 years, 20 years, 15 years, and even 32 years. Yeah? We had to realize that there are two different factions. And these two factions, we called them names. So a ritual of symbolism and naming is important, in my opinion. For example, we called the old guard legends and the new people newbies. And the old guard we actually needed to appreciate them, because truly speaking, an organization could not have lasted 45 years by fluke, right? So the old guard also had fire under their belly. The new team is coming with amazing new ideas. How do you bring these two cultures together? It's not an NCBA and CBA merger. It's not two organizations. But within the organization, if you look, even in your organization, you'll find those two or three factions. And now we have Gen Z, right? So for us, it was the legends and the newbies needed to be fused. And what is the ritual we started? We then created with a very capable HR team, and one of them is here, Lillian. Say hi, Lillian. We started something we call Kwetu. And our values that we had already created, we then changed it into Kiswahili, because most people understand Kiswahili. And Kwetu actually meant kujitolea, wajibika, elimisha, taaluma, and ukarimu. And all this became now a song. We even had an anthem, yeah, that was composed by the team, by, you will not believe it, by a surgeon. A surgeon actually composed, and if we have time, we'll sing the anthem with Lillian. And this anthem actually brought a wave across the organization. The third thing that we did in rituals is we demystified data. What do I mean by that? Avenue being a family-owned business for a long time, now becoming corporatized, private equity and so on, needed to move forward. And in a family-owned business, which I've seen in other businesses as well, information is held with very few people. And it is also used as power. Sindio? Si HR mnajuaga. Yeah? Kuna information yenye mnawekaga, kuna information hata hamupewi. Sindio? So what we needed to do is we needed to liberalize data and information. How did we do this? I proverbially opened the server in two factions. One, for the data of financials and performance, every single individual in the organization needed to know what's happening in the organization, including the cleaner. How many patients did we see? What was our net promoter score? How many complaints did we get? And the most sensitive one, how many sentinel events did we see? Because if that staff or that surgeon or that doctor does not know, then how do you expect them to make a difference? That was one part of the ritual, data. The second part of data was we liberalized data to even customer facing. We opened up our servers and said all our patient feedback will be displayed on screens such as this, unedited in all the setups. In a hospital, in a healthcare. I was sitting with a Coop Bank senior leader in the launch, and he told me, we give people money, and we can't dare put our net promoter score on the screen and our patient complaints on the screen. Patient feedback, yeah? But those two really transformed. The organization needed a shake-up, yeah? There was a lot of uncertainty who is going to be retained, who is not going to be retained, but the communication, because data was now available, performance evaluations were based on data, everybody knew where they were and what they needed to do, and that really transformed the organization. And the last thing to close, the daily rituals. The daily meetings, the weekly meetings, and the monthly CEO town halls that communicated change constantly and answered questions constantly. There's a lot more I can say, but I'll stop there.